Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by Texas Electricity Ratings. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton here momentarily. Hopefully, Jerry's having a couple technical difficulties, but he will be joining us. We are 53 days away from kickoff. It's getting closer and closer, Bobby. SEC Media Days are right around the corner. And we found out yesterday who they were going to be bringing to SEC Media.
Yeah. Texas put out the list. Sports Information Department. Texas is going to be bringing who we'll get to talk to during Media Days. Quinn Ewers, of course, third-year starting quarterback. Kelvin Banks, third-year starting offensive lineman, and Jahdae Barron, third-year starting defensive back for the Longhorns. All three of those guys will be with Steve Sarkisian. Longhorns hit the Big 12 media, or Big 12. Jeez. That's going to take some getting used to. The SEC Media Days begin next Monday. The Longhorns don't show up, though, until Wednesday. Blake will be there. On Texas Football will be there basically from Sunday night on all the way through the end of it. But it should be a little bit of fun here coming up, getting to see all the new teams that the Longhorns are going to be playing against, talking to some of their writers, reporters. We'll bring some of those guys to you as well here on Texas Football and Coffee and Football, so you can hear them. I see everybody in the chat this morning. I see Cafe Bustelo. I see Bob Shipley in the chat all the way from Abilene checking in. Morning, Bob. Just a lot of different places. Rio Grande Valley. My parents, by the way, some people sent me some nice texts yesterday. My parents are one of, I think, 2 million plus people still without power in the Houston area. And so thinking about them this morning a little bit too, and those of you that are similarly situated right now.
Definitely. That's very, very unfortunate there. And looks like Jerry will be joining us here in a moment. He's out there at Jamie French's practice, of all places. So checking that out. And we're going to have Paul Finebaum joining us here in just a little bit as well, Bobby. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is Bleacher Report recently came out with top 30 college football players of all time. And it's safe to say that, well, Texas is very well represented here. I'm putting the list up on the screen. Texas with, let's see, Vince Young at number 10, Tommy Nobis at number 11, Earl Campbell at 13, Ricky Williams at 17, and Colt McCoy at 29. But so 5 Longhorns, 1/6 of the top 30 are Longhorns. No Oklahoma players, kind of surprisingly enough, but I know that was something that kind of stood out to you. But what do you think of this list?
I think Leroy Selman belongs on there. My dad would tell me that from Oklahoma. My dad's a Texas fan, but he remembers Leroy Selman being an absolute beast. I think that Texas has its place in college football history, and each of those guys are deserving. Colt McCoy at one point had won the most games of any quarterback. I mean, Earl Campbell was maybe the best running back of his era. Tommy Nobis, two-way starter, established the number 60. Vince Young, 4th and 5. Ricky Williams, all-time leading rusher. Those are individuals that, really took college football by storm. Each of those guys did, in my opinion. And that's what that list talks about. The interesting thing to me, and I just got to be honest, I've never seen or heard Howard Cassidy mentioned as a top 10 college football player of all time. Now, he's got a great nickname, Hopalong, Howard Hopalong Cassidy, but I've never, did they do that just to say that they saw old people? And believe me, I'm old myself, so I say that. I kind of think it's weird, but a couple of them I do agree with. I mean, Tommy Frazier, tremendous college player. In that offense, I don't know that Nebraska ever had a better option quarterback. Barry Sanders, to this day, I think had the best single year of any player. I'll tell you one that probably belongs on here somewhere in that regard from a quarterback's perspective is Joe Burrow. You wouldn't think about it that way, but I mean, he had a better year as a quarterback than Mike Rozier had as a running back. I mean, Mike Rozier doesn't belong on this list, in my opinion, but I have some thoughts on it. Overall, Tony Dorsett absolutely belongs, probably higher than he is right now. I don't, Dave Remington didn't do much in the NFL, but they have a trophy named after him. Well, there are some good players for sure.
Yeah, it's just as I said, Texas is very well represented in that one. And Sarah, Jerry Hamilton, good morning to you.
Good, man. How are you guys doing? I'm out in Jacksonville watching Jamie French work out. This is getting your work in, man. Old Park grass field, getting your work in. Bugs all around my face, very humid, very hot. If Jamie French is here, on Texas football is going to be here.
Jerry, I've got to ask you, this isn't an official workout. It's just him working out with some friends, getting some receiver work drills in.
Yeah, working out with a guy that does a really good job down here working with skill guys in Jacksonville, played college ball. There's a guy, Chris Jones, who played in the NFL that also helps train some of these guys. So, yeah, they're getting their work in. It's a very, very muggy day here. So credit to these kids for getting in.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, Jerry, we were just talking about some of the best players in college football history. I don't know if you saw this list or not, but did you have any comments on it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, Barry Sanders had the best individual year. When you look down that list, I mean, I think Vince is probably a little too low for me on that list. I know he didn't win a Heisman Trophy, but what he did in those Rose Bowls, what he did when it mattered the most in the biggest games, I think puts him up there a little bit higher. I mean, I'd probably have Bo Jackson higher, just from a pure talent standpoint on that list as well. So I know a lot goes into this list, a lot of different thoughts, things such as that. But it's I don't know what their criteria was for this list, but it's amazing how this list would have changed if Peyton Manning had won a national title or a Heisman.
Oh yeah, that's true too. That's true too. I just think, look, I mean, you have a guy from Marshall in there and Randy Moss that's probably the best wide receiver that we've seen outside of maybe Jerry Rice, right? Those are probably the two best, but Jerry Rice doesn't make this list because he went to Mississippi Valley State. I think that I think we look at it, and I'm not sure. If these lists are fun to look at, but they're far from definitive, and I'll tell you why, Jerry and Blake and everybody else. It's the same thing. What does greatest mean to the person that's doing the list? That is the be all end all. Jerry, don't get hit by a ball. I know you're trying to move around right now. Don't get hit by the side of the head and we lose you on the way back. Are you headed back to Houston later today, or what's going on with you, Jerry?
Yeah, probably may make a stop on the way back to see somebody else. So we'll see kind of what their schedules are like.
Gotcha. We've got Paul Finebaum coming up at around 8:30. Paul, the mouth of the South, has basically become college football's de facto voice, in my opinion, in many ways. Excited to have him back. He's been on before with us. He always has a fun thing or two to say, in my opinion.
Hold on. Got something here. Birthday boy, Jamie French.
What's going on there, man?
Jamie French, birthday coming up, about to turn 18, man.
Yeah. How y'all doing in there?
Good, Jamie. You bet. How you doing, bud?
Just getting some work in, man. Early worm. Just getting some work in.
There you go. Hey, I hear you're going to announce on August 30th. Is that accurate?
Mom's birthday, correct.
All right, good for you, buddy. You take care, man. Have a good workout.
Right, you guys have a good one. Good morning.
All right, welcome. Good stuff there. Good kid there, Jerry. I'm glad you're out there and working the job as you do, as we say here.
Yeah, no doubt. Great. He's a kid that gets it, man. Great kid, super intelligent. But look, I mean, he's putting in his work, man. He's going to Destin Wednesday for his birthday with his family. So I love kids that'll get out here on these grass fields. This isn't the sport turf. They're out here on grass fields on an old park field, getting in the work, all these kids. There's a lot of kids that are playing small college football that are home for the summer here. Some really talented high school kids in the Jacksonville area. It's a really talented area. But Jamie, look, man, these kids that are highly ranked like that, that's the guys that I look for that are going to maximize their talent because they're still out here getting in their work. They got offers from everybody. They can go anywhere they want, but they're not resting on it.
Hey, this would make three if he were to pick Texas, which I want to ask you that question, and I think everybody wants to ask you that question. It would be 3 consecutive years where Steve Sarkisian and his group have tapped into Florida for a skill position player. 2.5 years ago now, Cedric Baxter, obviously the starting running back for the Longhorns. Last year, Jarrett Gibson, the running back out of IMG. And then this year it would be Jamie French, a wide receiver out of Jacksonville. What 3 different skill guys? Is there a reason for that, Jerry? And what's going on with French's recruitment as well?
Yeah, French's recruitment again. He said August 30th. That's his mom's birthday. That's when he's going to decide. I think Texas is in a really good spot for him right now. You got to go finish the recruitments off. I think. Look, here's the one thing. Georgia's trying to get him to come officially visit that last weekend in July. So we've wondered who the competition can end up being for Jamie French. It may change. It may end up being Georgia if he makes that official visit the last weekend in July, which I do believe he will. Why wouldn't you, right? Because Ohio State's not getting a visit. So Tennessee, Miami, LSU. But I think Texas is the leader, as they have been for a while. And now it's just about closing that recruitment out for Steve Sarkisian, Chris Jackson. I think Chris Jackson's done a really good job within French's family of relationship building. And as far as the why in Florida, obviously Jarrett Gibson, Cedric Baxter, running backs. That's Tashard Choice. He's been recruiting that area for years. Sorry, I'm sweating all over the place. When I say it's humid out here, what's the record for humidity? Because we're getting close. But I feel like Jim Cantori out here. By the way, I'm giving weather reports. But no, I think, look, Tashard Choice has recruited that Tampa, Orlando area for so long, and he's a running backs coach. So naturally, that was a really good fit with recruiting Cedric Baxter and Jarrett Gibson. He was also big in the Peyton Kirkland recruitment, who Peyton has transferred. He'll never probably get credit for it, but Peyton Kirkland was the first Florida kid to commit to Texas. That was kind of big because he was friends with Cedric Baxter. He knew Cedric Baxter, so he helped kind of get the ball rolling there for Texas in Florida. And Tashard Choice and Kyle Flood were on that recruitment. Jamie French is different because he's in Jacksonville. Texas hasn't had success in Jacksonville. They haven't really tried. They tried to recruit one D lineman who went to Georgia a couple of years ago out of the Sunshine State, but that was a long shot to begin with. Jordan Hall, I believe his name was, who will be a good player at Georgia. Texas fans will see him this year some. But Jacksonville's a different area. This is the newly charted territory for Texas in the SEC, and absolutely one of the best wide receivers in the country. A great kid, great culture fit at Texas. Parents really like the academic athletic combination at Texas. They've had 2 really good, strong visits to Texas. He brought 2 of his coaches from Mandarin on his official visit. So I just think this is new territory. I think moving forward, I do think we're going to see Texas recruit more in the state of Florida, which I think is a really good thing.
I've got to add this. Not only did they get Cedric Baxter and Jarrett Gibson hotly after Jamie French, but next year the quarterback commitment is from South Florida, Diabell.
And that's a new one as well, Bob.
That's another skill position guy in the state of Florida that Steve Sarkisian is like.
And look,
we need to say thanks before we get going further. We need to say thank you to our sponsor on Tuesday mornings, Coffee and Football. For those of y'all still living in Texas and in the major cities with deregulated electricity like Dallas and Houston, you understand that the deregulated electricity market can be confusing. Texas Electricity Ratings is a shopping website that lets you compare prices, read customer reviews, and find a good electricity plan that fits your needs. It also filters out a lot of the gimmicky plans on websites like Power to Choose that trick customers into expensive bills. So if you're in the market for a new electricity plan, shop TexasElectricityRatings.com/OTF for all your electricity needs. The folks at Texas Electricity also hope everybody is safe and sound, even if they're without electricity right now, because all of the down power lines, et cetera, in the city of Houston.
Okay, guys. Jerry, we also getting a lot of questions regarding recruiting in general. Do you have anything else out there? Decision-wise, I know some decisions were moved back, moved up. Yep. What's the latest with all that?
Yeah, Hurricane Burl, obviously. I'm trying to get a picture where you guys can watch the workout in the background there. But yeah, some decisions are backed up. Obviously, Kelshawn Johnson will be tomorrow, I think around 10 in the morning over at Hitchcock. That should be A&M over Texas right now. But Sarkisian has been on the phone with Kelshawn and his mom multiple times, and it's going to be A&M or Texas. But I think A&M's been trending. We'll see what happens, right? And then you have Jonathan Cunningham will be on July 12th, the 4-star linebacker out of North Crowley. Texas, Utah, or TCU there. I think Texas, he likes the idea of Texas, but will he go somewhere he thinks he can play earlier? I think that's the question with Jonathan Cunningham versus maybe a little bit more development time at Texas. July 13th, Dalen McCutcheon, the wide receiver out of Lucas Lovejoy. CJ and I will be talking about that on recruiting breakdown coming up a little bit more, but Florida State's been considered the favorite. Steve Sarkisian, Chris Jackson have been in contact with McCutcheon and his family like they have Kelshawn Johnson in the last 3 days. And then you have July 15th, big one. Now, Nick Townsend, 4-star, top 100 kid in the country, tight end out at Spring Decaney. He'll be announcing his decision. We believe Texas is in a pretty good spot there with Texas A&M and USC really fighting. And then his teammate, Tanook Hines, who Chris Jackson's been in contact with, the 4-star receiver out of Decaney, he will announce as well on the 15th. USC, his brother plays at Hawaii. Is there enough of a connection there on the West Coast for the family? Notre Dame, Texas, the 3 schools. Holman Wiggins has been in contact with him. Texas A&M hasn't offered. I think that could be dependent on what Kelshawn Johnson does on Wednesday, tomorrow, whether A&M moves forward with Tanook Hines or not. Yes, Zane Petty, that's a great comment. I'll bring
guys,
this one up.
we got a guest here with us ready to go. That is Paul Finebaum. Welcome, Paul, to the show. I hope you're doing well this morning.
Bobby, I'm doing great. Good morning to everybody. How's everybody doing?
Good. Hey, Jerry Hamilton is out there beating the bushes right now, Paul. He's in Jacksonville, Florida, at a high school recruit workout, and he says it's pretty hot down there, my man.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was up in New England over the 4th, and I had to wear a jacket. It was so cool. So but I'm back in the South now and sweating like Jerry is.
Good stuff. Hey, Paul, you came down. I did not get a chance to see you when you visited Austin a couple weeks ago, or a week and a half ago now, for the intro celebration to the SEC for the University of Texas. Then you hightailed it up to Oklahoma. Saw Joe Castiglione and the Sooners as well. What'd you think of your time in Austin? I think my question is, do you think Chris Del Conte knows how to throw a party?
Yeah, no, I said this at the very end of the broadcast, and listen, we work hard to do our show, and when we look out behind us and see 50,000 people, we are energized and feel great and brag to everybody what a crowd we drew, except we don't tell anyone that they were all there to see Pitbull. But it doesn't matter if they had resurrected Darryl Royal. The point was, it was one of the most unbelievable evenings I have ever spent. It exceeded expectations. It was just so spectacular in every way. And it was so fitting. You guys all know it, but I mean, it was just the quintessential Longhorn welcome. And at the very end of our show, I mean, I was pretty emotional. I mean, it was just because, you live your whole life. You've seen all these different iterations of the SEC, but I frankly think this was the pinnacle of anything I had ever seen before.
Why do you feel that way? What made you make that statement? Because I think fans here are familiar with it. You said it may be the biggest thing that's ever happened to the SEC. What made you feel that way?
I mean, a lot of people push back and say, hey, what about all these championships? And what about the SEC champion? But to me, and because I am a traditionalist, Bobby, I mean, I grew up in the era of Texas football and Oklahoma football. And, to go back exactly 3 years ago next week at that moment when the story broke and nobody knew what would happen, and to see it all finally come together in such spectacular fashion, it really got to me. And because I think individual athletic achievements are great, but collectively for the SEC, which is what I was referring to, I felt like this was the moment where, we all brag and we all do the, I mean, pick your favorite cliche. It means more, SEC. But I mean, this was the final moment in this long ordeal. And I think particularly back to Texas. You go back, 14 years ago this summer, and the fact that Texas was headed to the Pac-12, what would have happened if? And to think of this moment in time. And I knew Oklahoma wanted in the SEC years ago, and I reported that, and everybody shot me down, of course. But I never thought Texas wanted in. And the fact that Texas not only wanted to get into this conference, but was so happy about it, meant a great deal to me.
Paul, I guess my question is, we had a question from one of our fans here. What's the toughest matchup for Texas, in your opinion? Obviously, Georgia on the schedule this year. I assume that's your answer, but is there one that you think from a Texas perspective is going to be a tough matchup?
Yes, I do. And it may not be popular, but I think it's the final regular season game at Kyle Field. And by the way, I don't think it took a lot for me to answer that.
Right.
And here's why. Georgia's going to be better than probably anyone else but Texas, and A&M is not. But stop me if you've heard this before. It's a big game for Texas, but so is all these other games, Oklahoma and Georgia and Michigan and countless others. But to A&M, this is what it's all about. I mean, they're opening the season with Notre Dame, and only that can be overshadowed by this. I just think the emotion of all these years, of really the past 3 years. I mean, remember, A&M felt like it had finally gotten one on Texas. It got into the SEC in 2012. Texas floundered in those final years under Mack Brown and everyone since then. And A&M jumped out to a fast start, beat Alabama, all that. And I think they felt like, okay, we finally did something right in the world against Texas. And here comes Texas. And, those first couple of hours, you were getting the pushback from A&M. We're not going to vote for it. We're going to argue. The chancellor spoke out. Everyone else spoke out. And give the commissioner of the SEC credit. He quickly calmed everything down. And 3 days later, it was unanimous, of course. And since then, it's been all about Texas. And A&M has had to deal with the Jimbo Fisher debacle and all the other things that have gone on down there. While Texas, at the moment that is most important, they had to show they were ready for the SEC. What do? They win the Big 12. They nearly get in the national championship game.
I look at it, and you were down there when this was going on. The very week that they're entering the SEC, they also happen to steal A&M's baseball coach, who was on the verge of the national championship. I mean, if Chris Del Conte didn't stick the knife in the back and then twist, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, here I sat there. Listen, I realized it was a 4-hour show, so I'll give you guys a pass for not seeing every moment of it on a Sunday night. But I believe in the second hour we sat there with Del Conte and Schloss, and I jokingly said to Chris, I said, you were already in the SEC. This was not like the last night of Rush, where you had to do one more thing to be accepted into the fraternity. But it's like that they did that. They said, okay, we're going to show all the sneaky behind the back stuff that's ever happened in the SEC, and we're going to one up you by screwing over A&M and stealing their coach, which, by the way, everyone knew was going to happen anyway. And my only regret is that A&M didn't win the national championship, and then it would have been worse. They would have literally ripped him off the float in the A&M parade and said, you're coming to Texas, hook him, forget all this gig 'em stuff. But and what was funny is Del Conte, he didn't apologize for it. He didn't say, we have great friends at A&M and we respect it. He just said, screw you, you're coming with me. Let's go.
He's famously met with Schlossnagel at the cemetery in Snook, Texas. And so I think there's any number of jokes ready to go there. Paul, next week, SEC Media Days, you're going to be there covering it. Give folks a taste of what they can expect from you next week and whatnot as you guys go to Dallas. I'll see you up there probably.
Yeah, I think it's all going to be about, hot takes. I mean, by the way, guys, I was in Austin Sunday, and a young reporter came up to me, and I don't usually go back and try to clean up. I feel like I'm running for president and having to clean up my mess along the way. But the guy asked me this question, and this is where I'm going to lead to next week in a second. He said, at the end of the season, who will be the Texas starter? And I said, just like every one of you, Arch Manning. And it got interpreted as if I said Arch was going to supplant Quinn Ewers, which I never insinuated. So that's what you're going to get in Dallas. Any little misstep. Eli Drinkwitz, remember last year, making a hullabaloo. So what's going on, not yet, but probably by Friday of this week, every publicity guy in the league will sit down with his head coach and say, don't say anything. So if anyone says something, it will be a big deal. And those of us in the media will be like sharks to blood in the water on July 4th weekend. So I don't expect a lot. Nick Saban, I believe, will be there. So that's going to be, hey, Nick Saban's still here. He's there for ESPN. Yeah, I don't think DeBoer is going to be a big story other than he's the new coach at Alabama for the first time in 18 years. The Billy Napier stuff, we've all knocked that into the ground. I don't think Oklahoma and Texas will bring a lot of what I call fireworks. So I think the emphasis will primarily be on the players. I mean, you saw the other day where the quarterbacks are mostly going to be the stars of the show. So, some player will say something, that. But going in, I don't look at this as something like, wow, there is an overriding story coming into media days.
One thing that always comes out of this is who's on the hot seat. You mentioned Napier, right? That's kind of been I agree with you. It's been beat to death. World's worst schedule, all that stuff. Who are the other guys on the hot seat in the SEC, in your opinion? Like truly on it. Sam Pittman in Arkansas immediately comes to mind. I mean, he almost got let go last year. What about Shane Beamer, Clark Lee, any of those guys you think to that point yet?
Clearly, Pittman is probably the one that troubles the most because, when you talk about Sam Pittman, you have to say, but I really love Sam Pittman. It has nothing to do with whether he'll be back next year. Beamer, I don't think is quite there yet because after 2 seasons ago when he beat Tennessee and Clemson back-to-back, the AD did what all ADs do. They just forget reality and gave him a new contract. So it would be more difficult. And he is still liked very much by the fan base. So I think he'll be harder to get rid of. Clark Lee is a mystery to me. The real question is not whether he'll be fired, is whether Vanderbilt really cares whether they win a game or not. And there's no evidence that they do. So, I mean, those are the stories. I still, you always have to watch out for the unknown. And every time I mention Lane Kiffin's name, there's about 15 headlines. But I think he's somebody to keep your eye on. There's some big job open. Would he have taken Alabama last year? 100%.
Yeah.
Was he going to Auburn the year before? Yes. He ended up staying. So he's not someone that I ever really believe is on firm ground.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Mark Stoops might be. Mark Stoops is interesting because he's had such a great run at Kentucky, unbelievable run for Kentucky in particular. But when you get left on the tarmac at another school, that can change people's perceptions of you a little bit. Paul, anything else you want to add before you get going here, buddy? We really appreciate you coming on, by the way.
No, I've had so much fun. The last time I gave that rather weak hook'ems that made so much attention. I'm still living off of that credibility-wise in Austin and the surrounding area. So I listen. I just want to say finally how glad I am to see Texas part of this league, and it. Yeah, I said it earlier, but I'm still a little bit in amazement, and maybe next week it will even be more shocking to walk into media days and see Texas there. Ironically, it does look like Texas has already taken over the league now. The fact that we're having media days 8,000 miles from almost every school other than Texas.
I think that Sankey My thought on that is Sankey wanted to plant the flag in Texas and say he owned it, and not Brett Yormark, the Big 12 guy.
Well, Brett Yormark is beloved by a lot of people on the East Coast, but I'll take where the SEC is adding Oklahoma and Texas. And, if you spotted me $1,000, I'm not sure I could tell you the 4 new schools in the Big 12 right now.
There you go, Paul Finebaum. Always with the one-liner at the end. Appreciate you, Paul. You have a good one. See you next week, bud.
Pleasure, guys. See you next week.
All right, have a good one, man. Take care. What a great guy.
Awesome.
Truly one of those guys, in my opinion, that when he says something, it's like a ripple effect goes down. You throw the pebble in the water, except he throws boulders in the water sometimes. He did say that he was different on the Arch Manning Quinn Ewers comment.
Right.
That apparently, in his opinion, at least, not necessarily taken out of context, but he was just getting inundated with question after question, and that happens to folks as well. So good stuff. All right, Jerry, you know what time it is for you, buddy.
Man,
you ready for it? Because it's going to be more meaningful today than usual, and that's your Manscaped read, my man.
Man, it is sizzle alert, and that is me right now. This is summer. Let the only thing smoking at your barbecue be the grill, not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the pool, make sure your meat looks neat with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. Fire up your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code ONTEXAS, all caps, for 20% off and free shipping. Let's make this summer sizzle for all the right reasons. And guys, somebody hit on it in the chat. I am sizzling. The crop preserver ball aftershave lotion is the crop soother is must-need event right now. That's what I'm telling you. Post-trim care never felt so good with the crop soother ball aftershave lotion. Say goodbye to painful chafing and hello to all-day comfort, even while manning the grill. And if manning the grill is watching this workout, I'm all in.
People want to know if you're going to read that from the swamps of Louisiana next.
Maybe. I'm going to try to get you guys a few more views here of Jamie working, and then I'll get out of here so I can get a little time with him.
Look at that old mossy tree back there. You got the
look, I mean,
you're definitely in that part of the country, the Atlantic coast, man.
I think the mosquitoes can come out of here, some big ones, some 5-star mosquitoes.
I think some 5-star.
If my legs are any indication, they are.
5-star mosquitoes. Dude, I grew up in Houston. That's the home of 5-star mosquitoes.
Hey, we have
nothing like mosquitoes on a hot baseball night at the park, man. Oh, brutal. Hey, we've got some questions lining up. Blake, you want to bring some of those up, and we'll get
the first one actually is a comment more for Jerry, and it's a super chat from Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. He says, Jerry, thank you for your hard work. I would send you a virtual hug, but I don't want to get virtually sweaty.
Appreciate that. Always, man. We'll always be on the scene.
And then our next question, fellas, is another super chat as well. Well, it's more of a comment. This one from Jay Lee. He says, day number 5 with no manscaping until we land a 5-star.
Take that up with your significant other, not me.
Yeah, that's better in the single life.
Oh man! And then going back to Texas A&M chatter a little bit ago with Paul Finebaum, Major Alexander said, and thank you, Major, for the super chat. Every Texas A&M person I know thinks Texas is going to win that game. They say it with a sad look in their eyes.
Dude, I'm telling you now, I agree with Paul. That's going to be an otherworldly contest, because if these football players have any love for A&M at all, that's going to be a fight to the death. This means a lot to the folks in College Station. I mean, the way that rivalry ended last time, watching Justin Tucker run away from his teammates and get dogpiled, that's their lasting memory of Texas and Texas A&M on a football field. That is not what Aggies have wanted to think about for the last 13 years. And they thought they got rid of all that. To Paul's point, by the way, they thought they got rid of all that negative feeling. They got Johnny Manziel and went to the SEC and started doing all this stuff. now with the rivalry returning, they have to sit there and watch that kick over and over and over again. I guarantee you on November 25th, when that game gets played, there's going to be the intro will be that kick, and Aggie fans will just have a pit in their stomach from the very start of the very first opening line there. So I get it. I think A&M will play their darndest. We'll see what happens. We'll see where I think that, Jerry, Blake, I think injuries and health of the team will be big that time of year, especially considering this. Texas was relatively healthy all year last year, right? Very healthy team overall. Lost Jonathan Brooks late, but no other major injuries throughout the year. Is that going to be the same in a conference that's a little bit tougher up front? I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. Question here from Zane Petty I want to get to.
Yep.
GH, Aggie push for Lockett real? Absolutely. I think Alabama as well. So if he cuts that list down anymore before his August 7th announcement, A&M, Bama, Texas, wouldn't be surprised if those were the three, but we'll see. And I think A&M is making a real push there.
We've gotten quite a few questions on him, but also Fasusi as well, Jerry. A lot of people want to know if there's a certain reason that he's moved that announcement date up. It was originally scheduled for the end of August, and then as it was put out yesterday, it definitely moved up there. But do you have any info on that? We've had a lot of people join since you originally did that first recruiting update.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Texas or OU is where his decision ultimately comes from. Let's dig on that a couple more days. Give it a couple more days here on my end. I've been traveling a little bit, so we'll see. We'll see if this is what comes of this one Friday.
Are we sure that is a commitment announcement, Blake, or is that possibly just a top three or something like that? Because that's kind of what I was wondering.
Yeah, he did say major announcement. He didn't say it was a commitment. So good point there, Bobby. I don't know, Jerry,
I tend to think he's going to announce his commitment date right now, but we'll see.
There you go. And then Kelly horns up, says French looks really tall next to Jerry. Is he about 6'3"?
Dude, he has grown. I'm 6 foot. I'm 6 foot without shoes on even. So I do think Jamie's closing in on 6'3". Yes.
Very interesting. And then, guys, we got a super chat here from Jerry's Jack Links. He says, I just want to say it again. I ain't worried about Cruton, and I still think DeCorian Morris ends up a Longhorn.
Hey, hold on. Somebody asked a question, Jamie. Are you almost 6'3" now? Are you growing still?
I'm almost 6'3".
Almost 6'3".
I'm almost 6'3".
Still growing. This guy was like 6 foot, 170 pounds 2 years ago?
I was.
Almost 6'3". There you go. I'm going to let him get back to work. More important than me.
Hey, at least you got it from the horse's mouth. Can't beat that. All right, guys, a couple of other super chats here. This one from Sports Talk J. Is Texas helping fund Oregon / Phil Knight's NIL by wearing Nike uniforms? Advertising makes money, right?
Look, I mean, you can say that, but what do you want them to do? Go be On Running or Adidas? I mean, look, Nike is ubiquitous. Nike is also bigger than Phil Knight. So I don't think Texas is helping fund that. Actually, Texas is paid a huge sum by Nike to wear Nike. So Texas isn't paying for the right to wear Nike. Nike is paying Texas large sums.
There you go. And on a somewhat related note, guys, Rick Neuheisel put out a comment the other day. It took the internet by storm. And Jack, I want y'all to comment on that. And Neuheisel basically said Phil Knight is throwing, unlimited NIL money at Oregon. And he says, as far as I'm concerned, if a kid doesn't want to play for Texas, then I don't want him.
So Jack, thank you for the super chat. I agree with this in some respects. But I want to add this about what Neuheisel said. He's not wrong, but these decisions aren't solely based on NIL. I mean, they're just not. I'd love to say that Josiah Sharma's was solely based on NIL, but based on what we've been told, it's not. Same with DeCorian Moore. Okay. Some guys, I think that Oregon's sales pitch right now is resonating. And I talked to someone close to the situation on Jonah Williams yesterday, the defensive back out of Galveston Ball. This whole come be different thing is resonating. Man, I just want to get away. Well, I mean, I think that pitch has always resonated with kids at some level. What is happening now is there's dollars attached to that pitch as well that makes it resonate more. We'll see. Texas needs to be able to and other schools that are recruiting those guys need to be able to overcome that. A lot of people, Jerry, are making loud noise that Michael Terry out of San Antonio Alamo Heights now is looking heavily at Oregon. We do believe Oregon's involved. Yeah. We don't necessarily believe Oregon is the leader, though, which is what some people have put out or are thinking right now. Where are you at on that recruitment? I know you have a source close to that one. Have you checked in with that one in the last 5-7 days?
Not in the last few days, but look, it's an interesting recruitment because Oregon says you can play running back, which I don't believe. And then they got Jordan Davison, by the way. Nebraska's saying play wide receiver, catch passes from 5-star Dylan Raiola. That sounds good to somebody who wants to play offense and prefers wide receiver. Texas and Texas A&M are recruiting him as an athlete, pure and simple. So I think tight end or edge linebacker, outside linebacker, edge rush prospect is where Texas sees Michael Terry. I don't think wide receiver is what he would play at Texas. So I think it makes for very interesting recruitment. I think some people are telling him what he wants to hear. I think it could very well come down to two things with him. What do the people around him, what type of advice is he getting from a future in football perspective? I mean, look, if a kid wants to be an offensive player, go be an offensive player because those guys don't normally end up defensive players. Look at JT Sanders. He was listed as an athlete. Some people, myself included, said, man, if he would buy into defense, he could be a really good defensive player, outside rush linebacker type guy. He did not want to be that. He wanted to be an offensive player. And he made the decision that was best for him because guys that want to play offense, they can't just turn around and play defense. There's a mentality and a physicality to that. You have to be bought into being a defensive player. So I think he'll make an offensive decision. The question is, what will the people around him talk to him about in terms of that? Where is the best place for him to go and maximize his potential as an offensive player potentially? That to me is not running back, and that to me is not wide receiver. So we'll see what he decides. But that's just my opinion. We'll see what the people around him suggest.
All right, guys.
Hey, by the way, I want to tell people I'm about to have to go here. They're going to wrap up this workout. We're going to spend some time with Jamie here in a little while. But on TexasFootball.com, I have a thread going, photos, videos from this workout on TexasFootball.com. Jamie French workout live thread.
Good stuff, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry, for being there. Jerry also is going to have a one-on-one interview with Jamie French. We think either later today or tomorrow here on Texas Football.
Oh, I want to add something in here. Good question. Can Sark
get Dallas Wilson in for an official visit during the season? That's the receiver out of Tampa that Texas attempted to get in, but Oregon kind of quashed.
Currently committed to Oregon. Scheduled. He's visited Florida, visited Miami, visited Oregon, has a scheduled visit to FSU in November. He's still talking to Texas. We'll see if that something develops there, but not out of the question. And he is really damn good, by the way. Really smooth. Bobby, I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, I love that kid. Yeah, he's one of my guys.
All right, guys, hook him. Y'all have a great day.
All right, see you.
Bye, Jerry. Bobby, before we move on, and we still have a lot of questions and obviously a lot of time for people to get their questions in, I need to tell folks out there about our newest sponsor, if I can pull it up here, Chubby's. That's what I'm here to tell you about today. They're a staple in my household between me and my boys. We love them. We love their looks. We love how stylish they are. Chubby's has crafted the most comfortable clothing with the most unique designs ever. And for a limited time, Chubby's is giving our listeners 20% off your order with our exclusive code. All you have to do is just use promo code ONTexas at chubbyshorts.com, and they're going to give you that 20% off. When it comes to true style and comfort in the form of men's shorts, you literally cannot do better than Chubby's iconic original stretch shorts. They're available in 4-inch, 5.5-inch, and 7-inch inseam lengths, just depending on how much of your beautiful thighs that you're wanting to show off each and every day. They put Chubby's on the map for a reason. And of course, you compare the original stretch shorts with Chubby's lineup of Friday shirts, and now you're cooking with all gas and no brakes. When others see you sporting Chubby's in the wild, they're bound to say, oh, wow, that person's wearing Chubby's. I now immediately respect them and think they're cool. So to join that Cool Kids Club, just head over to chubbyshorts.com, use promo code ONTexas. They're going to give you 20% off, and you can't beat that. Don't just blend in with the crowd. Stand out with Chubby's. And we want to thank them for being a sponsor today.
Make sure you use code ONTexas to get 20% off.
All right, Bobby, we got some more stuff here. A lot of questions. And let's see here. This was actually for Jerry. But Freelance Society put in a super chat. He says, Ethan Feaster, Booby Feaster, the DeSoto wide receiver. Could he be the next great talent like a DeCorian Moore?
Could be. It could be. Look, James Lott's son is pretty special too for next year. I would wait and see more how he develops. And I'm talking about Booby Feaster. He was only a freshman this year. DeCorian put it together 2 consecutive years at the varsity level. I'm a little reticent to start saying that, although I think that everybody is talking about Feaster as a guy that may be the next big thing in Texas high school football. So it's possible. It's possible.
He's a good-looking kid. I remember seeing him, I think it was February when they had the Elite Day. He, from a physicality standpoint, physical standpoint, he looked very impressive for sure. Zane Petty here with the super chat. Multiple sources say Texas NIL 15 to 17 million, Oregon's NIL 25 million, and DeCorian Moore, the highest non-quarterback NIL ever. NIL is leading Oregon's pitch. Your thoughts?
Okay, that's wrong, categorically wrong on Texas as far as a number. And I'm not going to give the number, but it's lower. I mean, Texas is higher than that, 15 to 17. Okay. It's my understanding of that. Oregon, I don't know what their number is. I'm not an Oregon, pitch man. So I don't follow them that closely. But does Oregon lead with NIL? They lead with 2 things. Come be different, come go, across the country, leave your family, you want to be different, be your own man, etc. And money. That's the combo for Oregon. And then they say, oh, but we have great coaches, all that other stuff. But I agree. Texas does not lead with NIL. Steve Sarkisian has said it multiple times. So if that's the case, that may be something that either Sark changes with certain players or should change with certain players if he's wanting to attract those guys and has to figure that out, or he stays the way he is. And we see how it turns out. Right now, I'm not concerned about that number for Oregon, to be honest. I think Texas is going to be fine. Texas is one of the top 2 or 3 in the country in NIL, period.
Yeah. We got some other questions here. This one from Scott Knudsen, and he says, just curious, who do you honestly think has the better wide receiver room, Ohio State or our beloved Longhorns? It has to be close, right?
They have a Buika. They have the freshman that everybody's really hot and bothered about. I don't know Ohio State's receiver room right now well enough to answer that. I don't know, who's the true number 1 for Texas? Like, who's the top 10 pick? The only guy that I think is a top 10 pick for Texas on the roster right now, potentially, from the receiver perspective, is Ryan Wingo. And he's going to be a true freshman. Okay. That doesn't mean all of those other guys won't play pro football. So I don't know that Texas has the older guy that is the really, really bad dude. Isaiah Bond is really talented. I don't know if he's a top 5 wide receiver in college football. I don't know that he has that ability. Same with Matthew Golden or Silas Bolden or Jonte Cook. We'll see. I couldn't sit here and talk to you about who has the better wide receiver group, Ohio State or Texas. Not with any confidence.
And hook on 48-63. Any new developments on the defensive line?
Not at this point. Jerry talked about it yesterday a little bit. We do think that Texas is going to look in some non-traditional ways at defensive line. They're also going to take a second look at or a first look at some players around the country. I think they're going to try to bring some guys in throughout the season. So we'll be on the lookout for that. But as of right now, nothing like tangible. They are waiting or awaiting the decision from DJ Sanders out of Belleville, who Belleville was hit by the hurricane as well. Waiting the decision there that they think is down between Texas and Texas A&M. And then Texas will likely, kind of reset the board at least in mid to late July.
And then we've had this question a few times today from a couple of people, but Johnny Epps wants to know, any word on summer workouts? Who do you think's standing out? Have you heard anything on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. So long story short, I did talk to someone, I guess it was a day and a half ago now. Ryan Wingo was actually pointed out to me, as was Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, and Gunnar Helm. Isaiah Bond, Jonte Cook weren't mentioned. Doesn't mean they weren't having good summer workouts, but Ryan Wingo in particular and Gunnar Helm in particular were mentioned. And I reported that yesterday on OnTexasFootball.com. Some other news and notes as well. Jalen Gilbo. I'm telling you, we started this whole thing off today, Blake, by talking about who Steve Sarkisian's bringing with him to SEC Media Days. And it's, if you missed it, it's Quinn Ewers, Kelvin Banks, and Jahdae Barron. I'm just here to tell you, everything I am hearing, Jalen Gilbo is going to be a factor somehow in the secondary this year. Now, he's playing behind Jahdae Barron, who Steve Sarkisian is even bringing to SEC Media Days. So I don't know how Jalen Gilbo is going to factor in, but I'm not so sure that Jalen Gilbo isn't a future NFL player right now. That's just letting you know. So those are some of the things that we talked about. Jermaine Lole, they've liked a lot of the newcomers. So watch for him a little bit, maybe more than expected. A lot of people had thought it would be Bill Norton. Lole has looked, I'm told, really good athletically and healthier for the first time in a long time.
On that front, Mark in Austin says Texas could play a 3 linebacker set with Trey Moore, judging from what he saw at UTSA. Curious to get your thoughts on that, Bobby.
I have been told that Moore has given Kelvin Banks some fits at times, and that's saying something. Not many people have during his tenure at Texas. Texas hasn't had that supreme pass rusher during spring or summer workouts. But Moore is the one guy that gave Kelvin Banks some trouble last year. So if he's going to give Kelvin Banks trouble, he's going to give other people trouble too.
And going back to Gilbo for a second, Ivory Martin says, can he play some safety?
He has worked exclusively at nickel his entire time at Texas. And I think he could play safety because he is the naturally physical guy, but he's not a big guy. So I don't know if you really want him running the alley. He could, but I think they want him at nickel. And he may be a guy. Let's see what happens and how they use him this year. Somebody mentioned in the chat just then that they could kick Barron out to corner if they needed to. And that's accurate. I don't know if Barron should be playing corner, though. I don't think he has the foot speed necessarily to be a true corner. If anything, Barron should be the one kicking back to safety.
And Cody Hook says, I think Jaray Bledsoe will surprise people this year. I've heard nothing but good things about the kid. What are your thoughts on Bledsoe?
I hope so. literally just crossed my fingers below the screen here. And you couldn't see it when you said that, because he's kind of an X factor. Dre Bledsoe is an X factor for this defense. You don't really, when you talk about who you think is going to be a real part of it, you start talking about the run stoppers and the older guys. You talk about Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins, and you start talking about Lole, Tia Savea, and Bill Norton, right? Well, Dre Bledsoe is more athletic than all of those guys, but he's also younger and has less experience. And so you wonder, how much better can he be? Because his upside is NFL. And so when I say an X factor, that's what I mean. Like if he somehow gets better and better and better, Texas is looking at a guy that could be a high draft pick. However, he has to play better against the run. And so, I've got questions there. Is he truly a defensive tackle, or is he more of a strong side defensive end with pass rush moves? Long term, that's the real question you have. Is he a 3 to 5 technique instead of a true 3 technique?
And then Zane Petty wants to know, how's Alex January looking?
The latest we've heard on Alex is he's looking really well. He's reshaped his body quite a bit since arriving on campus. I have not talked to anyone specifically about him in more than a week, though. Hey, Blake, I need to say thank you one more time before we get going here for our friends at Texas Electricity Ratings. Guys, for anyone shopping for electricity in the deregulated areas of Texas, TexasElectricityRatings.com is the best place to find an electricity plan for your household. For starters, it filters out the dangerous and gimmicky plans from providers that are all hat and no cattle when it comes to your monthly bill. You can shop by any rate, but also by an average bill feature that actually takes into account seasonal usage to give you a real number and not some placeholder. So if you're looking for a new electricity plan, check out TexasElectricityRatings.com/OTF for the best options available. Just got a note, more than 2 million people currently out of electricity in the city of Houston, in and around it. 2 million people. Just crazy.
That's crazy. Hey, Curtis says, advertising works. I've used Texas Electricity Ratings for our second home in Corsicana. So that's awesome, Curtis. Thank you. All right, Bobby, we got time for a few more questions before we get out of here. And I saw it just a second ago if I can find it. But a lot of people are wanting to know if you have any plans yet for some of these upcoming events, including the Michigan game. UT Tyler Guy says, any plans for UT at Michigan? I'll be heading up there for it on the Thursday before.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to have a tailgate that morning in conjunction with the guys at Surly Horns. I'll be up there. We're doing a tailgate, etc. The only negative is it's going to be at noon. The game is at noon Eastern, and so the tailgate won't be able to be long enough for some folks. But we'll be up there and should have some fun. We've talked to some vendors that want to be a part of it. They're more than welcome to be part of it. Please give us a shout if you need to or want to be a part of it. And we'll obviously invite everybody from On Texas Football to be there with us as well, that if you're going to the game. I do want to mention this too real quick. Lulu's son, the tennis player that's in the quarterfinals of Wimbledon, she's down in the third set. She won the first set, lost the second set. She's now down 5-0 in the third set. So her Cinderella run in Wimbledon looks like it's coming to a close today, unfortunately. But applaud the young lady for giving it a go, getting all the way to the Wimbledon quarterfinals.
There you go. Okay, and like I said, Bobby, time for just a few more questions here. So let's take a couple more regarding some of the team-related ones. And Robert Gray says, Bobby, do you see resemblance with Gilbo and another 409 legend in Earl Thomas?
So I'll put it this way. I see some dog in Jalen Gilbo we all saw in Earl Thomas. I don't know that I see the all-around athlete in the speed of Earl Thomas. That's a little bit different category for me. And so I understand when you start talking about guys that are from the mud, of 409, Beaumont, West Orange Stark, that area, Silsbee, Jasper, all that, Port Arthur, all that area. I get it because I grew up around it a little bit and played against it. And so I get and understand what you're talking about.
And then let's see here. Bobby, this next question come from Odenhorns. Texas offense is going to average around 35 points per game, but what do you think about their defense? What do you see them allowing?
I would hope anything less than 23 to 24 a game. And that's going to be that's amping up from the Big 12. But I think that, Texas loses or lost two dominant players, not just good players, but dominant players. Like Jalen Ford was a good player for Texas. Okay. Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, they could be dominant players for Texas. Texas lost two dominant players up the middle of the field. That is going to categorically change their defense. I expect Pete Kwiatkowski to take a little back step from points scored because of that. Teams are more likely to be more efficient and effective in the red zone because of it. I do think the secondary will be better this year, but I would say 23, 24 points a game would be about what we should expect at some level.
And he said 35 points on the offense, Bobby. You think that's attainable?
I think it's attainable. I think it's doubtful.
There you go.
I think 33, 34 is more where Texas is going to sit playing a different lineup. I mean, look, Kentucky would be the best defense in the Big 12 next year. I'm going to put that out there. So, y'all figure that out. Mississippi State will have 5 guys on their defense that plays in the NFL. Okay. The defenses are better. Or excuse me, I should say the defenses are more talented in the SEC. Doesn't make them better per se. It does make, however, going on these big scoring trips more difficult.
We'll take 2 more, Bobby, then we got to get out of here. This first one, a super chat from David, and I'm not sure what he's referencing here, but he says, I've been away for a few days, but I was wondering if the mother that spoke up on social about Sark has impacted recruiting negatively.
David, you'll have to be more specific, or somebody in the chat may understand the reference, and we'll come back to it for sure.
Oh, here we go. He said, I don't recall all the details, but basically said that he doesn't keep promises.
I know. He's talking about Bonnie Thompson.
Oh.
Brennan Thompson's mom, I think that is now at OU. I don't know what to say. I mean, I really don't know what to say on that at this point in time. I mean, there are going to be people that you have to just move on. I mean, both sides. And so I think that's what Texas needs to do. And I think that's what the Thompsons need to do. And I don't, the difference between Texas, I don't think that affects Texas negatively at all. Personally, I think parents understand that each situation is different.
This will be the last one, and it's a hypothetical, but Brendan says he says when, but let's say if Texas wins the national championship this year, where would you rank Quinn on the all-time Longhorn list, assuming he stays healthy and plays the full season?
Man, that is a good question. Quarterbacks that have been better than Quinn in a Longhorn uniform to date. Okay. I'm just going to go, and I'm not talking about 1-year guys so better than Quinn to date. James Street, and this is from 69 forward. James Street for sure. Vince Young, Colt McCoy, probably Chris Sims was better because he started at this point. Those three, then maybe Sam Ellinger. And now the mid group, Marty Akins and Robert Brewster and Peter Gardere, that's a little bit different. They weren't quite. I would say probably right now he's probably fourth or fifth and has a chance to go up to second or third. I think it's going to be hard for him to have the career of a Vince Young or Colt McCoy. So I'm guessing he's third or below at the end of this.
There you go. All right, Bobby. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by Texas Electricity Ratings. So we want to thank them for sponsoring along with Manscaped and Chubbies. Be sure all the super chats. We need to thank Paul Finebaum for joining. That was some good stuff for sure. A lot of good sound bites in that interview, no doubt about that. Anything that people need to be aware of coming up?
Jerry's got talking with Jamie French probably right now while we're doing this. They've got recruiting breakdown. He and CJ later today, and then we have the live stream tonight with Rod Babers. Aaron Hogan will be hosting. If you have a chance, make sure you join the discussion with us at ontexasfootball.com. The message boards are happening right now. Feel free to ask questions there during the day if you would like to. We have a special right now for $39.95 subscription for 1 year. If you use the promo code OTFOG, be an OG with us at ontexasfootball.com. That's $20 off the regular subscription price.
There you go. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell so that way you don't miss any time that we post a video, go live. You won't miss any breaking news between those two avenues. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
Hook 'em.